Hello, everybody. Grant Hunter here with another Product Growth Leaders topic of the week. Steve and I had a great time on JJ Rorie's podcast earlier this year. And we are so excited because she's got a new book coming out called Immutable, The 5 Truths of Great Product Managers. And we thought maybe we should take this chance to make topic of the week about truths of great product managers. And we've got Cory, what did we say last week? A very special episode.
Always a very special episode.
A very special guest with us this week, JJ Rorie. And congratulations on the book. We're so excited for Immutable, and I actually have already purchased it as a Kindle.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. Here's I've got the one and only print version in the world right now. Next Wednesday, the 29th of June, it will be out on print. So I'm excited to be here. The book has been a labor of love. So thanks for having me to chat about it.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to have you here. And what a great panel. Cory Bryan, Dom Signorel, and of course my partner, Steve Johnson. On Monday, we put this question in the community. And JJ and I actually had this debate, like, do we tell them what the 5 truths are and see what they think, or do we just... So we went out generically and said, what are the truths of great product managers, to get some responses. And Jason Weber, longtime friend of the community, he came in sort of with a tongue-in-cheek. An executive will have just spoken with a single customer with a problem, and the result will blow up your roadmap. And I think that's a truth of product management, maybe not a truth of a great product management. Faith Peterson came in great. Designing and prioritizing ethically for humans. Society and our planet is never wrong. It took a little while to get everybody coming through, but Dom, you came in strong. Curiosity and lifelong learner. Talk to me about your approach on that.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously without curiosity, I mean, you're not a product manager. I mean, that's to me is the basics of also of growing, and curiosity is in all aspects, right? In understanding the market, and understanding the customer and whatnot, and also understanding the organization you're working in, so that you can be effective in communicating customer pain points when you get back, doing your homework.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting. I was talking to a president of a company yesterday. They're looking to hire their first product manager, and she's asking me what characteristics. And actually, Dom, I had just seen yours, and I'm like, curiosity and a growth mindset, I think, are 2 great characteristics for that. Steve, we've talked about curiosity so much, but we've never really written about curiosity or done a topic of the week on curiosity.
Well, there's an opportunity, isn't there?
Always is.
But I agree with that. I mean, curiosity is powerful, and it's a little bit of I'm a strong believer in an observation, and the second part of observation is the curiosity part, and that is, I just observe a thing. Do you suppose nobody thought of that? So it's like, are you having a eureka moment? As I talked about once before, I see process and design everywhere I go. Like, why on a buffet are the drinks at the beginning of the buffet when you don't have enough hands available? Instead, they should be at the end of the buffet, when you've got your plate organized or something. And it's not so much that it's curiosity, it's observing and going, where's the friction in this experience? So I think that would be my truth. And of course, I haven't read the book yet. It's ordered. It's on my Kindle as we speak. But I don't know if that's one of the truths. So, but my truth is really recognizing that you're observing friction.
It's interesting because as I was reading through the book, it's like, in reading through some of the answers we got from the Monday question, and I'll sort of pose it to you, JJ. There's like some cause and effect, right? Is the truth the cause? Is the truth the effect? And talk to me when you were thinking about this question. What are the truths of great product managers? How did you sift through? I mean, everything. And Cory, I'll get to you in a second because you had some good stuff in yours as well.
Yeah, no, it's this. I love this discussion. So as I was thinking through the 5 truths, or really as it started in my head was, what are the similarities? What makes a great product manager, right? And so we all work in different industries and different product cultures. We build different products. We all have different educational backgrounds, but at the end of the day, are there, and this was my hypothesis going in, that there were some similarities in skill sets or knowledge that really anchor great product managers. Whatever else they have to know and do, there's a set of things that they do and know and are capable of that allow them to be successful, right? Yeah. And so then I tried to say, okay, what are those things? And that's how I ended up on these five truths of great product managers. To your point, there are underlying activities, behaviors that help someone master these truths, I think. And curiosity is a good one. So curiosity is not one of my 5 immutable truths of great product managers, but it certainly is, to me, one of the underlying behaviors and activities and really innate innate kind of attributes, if you will, that allows someone to master some of these truths. So let me, for the record, let me just state out my 5 truths that I've laid out in the book, and then I'll tell you some examples of where I think curiosity helps bolster those. So number 1, great product managers have an exceptionally high level of customer intelligence, right? Number 2, they are experts at building relationships. Number 3, they're master communicators. Number 4, they have uncommonly good judgment. And number 5, they're fanatical about prioritizing their time. So you can see that those truths are, so every good product manager I've ever worked with works on prioritizing, they have good judgment, they communicate, they have good relationships, they know their customers. Doesn't mean that you can snap your fingers and get there, right? Yeah. You've got to build those things. And curiosity, to Dom's point, is a really good one. I talk about like in customer intelligence, right? Which basically means you've got an appreciation for and a level of intelligence on your customers. Without that, what are we doing? We're never going to build a good product. Yeah. So, curiosity and kind of constantly learning about our environment and the environments in which our customers do business or live, that's a table stake for having a high customer intelligence, right? And to Steve's point of, just kind of, studying the world around us, observing. There's something I talk about in the book. And again, I mentioned this before as we were just getting started. I'm a big believer in simplifying because I think we overcomplicate things. So in the book, I talk about, okay, how do you build customer intelligence? And believe me, there are books on my shelf, on your shelf, about voice of customer and continuous discovery, and they're awesome.
Well, there's nothing on my shelf right now because I'm moving.
That's right, because you're moving on Monday. They're written by people much smarter than me. There's no question. But here's what I've done in my career and how I've seen good product managers do this. And it sounds as simple as it is. The world around, they discuss what today. They're intentional about getting together with people and discussing things, and they observe, right? They observe their customers. They observe what's going on. Study, discuss, observe. Sounds so simple, but that's where that curiosity comes in, and that intentionality of, okay, I want to be, have good relationships and build my customer intelligence. Guess what's going to help me with that? My innate curiosity.
Well, it's interesting because I almost think like there's another book in my head. Maybe we do it as a group book from this call. It's the 5 characteristics of great product managers. And it seems like the truths are almost how do you judge that somebody has it? If they have these things, exceptionally high customer intelligence is almost a byproduct of curiosity and observation skills and growth mindset.
Or an outcome, perhaps.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's outcome is better than byproduct, I think. Byproduct means now I'm thinking all agriculture, and now I'm just totally lost where I was. But it seems like we get asked all the time, what are these characteristics, right? And it seems like as I'm looking at the answers that we got through, a lot of them were characteristic versus truths, and maybe we should have been a little more not as vague about the question and given the examples and people could have shared, but we'll
Well,
get into
that wouldn't be as good of a question if you said, what did JJ say on page 4 of her book?
Congratulations, you're certified as an immutable.
Yeah. I can have my own certification and charge people $400,000.
Exactly.
No, but it's interesting that you bring that up, because as I was thinking about the book and what to call these things, I thought habits, I thought skills, I thought what is the term for this? And it's not, they're habits that make them, they're skills that build them. It's not, in truth is what I came up with. Is it the best one? I don't know, but I have really learned to love that term for this, because look, it doesn't mean, or a couple of thoughts here. It doesn't mean you just snap your fingers and these are your truths. You got to build them. And the second thing is, it's not the only thing you have to do, right? Like, you can be a great relationship builder and communicator. It's not the only skill you got to have. You got to have some level of technical acumen. You got to have some level of financial acumen. It's not the only things you need, but these truths, in my opinion, are kind of bedrock.
I like the word truth, and you framed it the right way for me. And I know there's some other words in my head I'm trying to find and I can't find them. Let's get back to some. Cory, you said for you it's the fact that you'll never know all that you need, and that. Yes. Is that a truth, or is that it's not a capability? It's interesting because you're almost giving us a different category.
That is something that every place I've been, every place I've interviewed, every person I've coached or tried to mentor or talk to that's a product person thinks that there's an endpoint. At some point, I will know enough to be a good product manager. At some point, I'll know enough where this person won't yell at me, or at some point, I'll know enough to write this story, or whatever the thing is. They think they just don't know enough. And the truth is, you will never know enough. There is always something else you can learn. There's always something else you can do. I may know a lot. I talk to this people when I'm interviewing people and they tell me, well, you're not experienced in the financial industry or something like that. It's like, look, you guys have 30 years of pricing trades, of understanding this. I have a concept. I have an understanding. There's more I can learn. Absolutely. I will never know as much as you. And that's okay, because that's not your problem. Your problem is you don't know how to do these other things that can get your knowledge into a product. And same thing with people that I coach when product managers say, well, I don't know enough. You know something. Take what you do know, apply it, learn, go to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So I like that concept. And it's been, that word immutable is what I really picked up on in your title. And for this question is, it's applicable everywhere. And everywhere I have that conversation with people is, if I just knew enough. And that's why I say you don't know enough. Other than that, the 4 laws of software economics that Rich Marinoff has, and the 4 product risks that Marty Kagan has, I refer back to those 8 things very frequently, because they are applicable in almost every situation.
Yeah.
Wow. So look at that audience. Rich Marinoff and Marty Kagan and JJ Rorie all coming together.
Don't say my name with that group. Don't be silly. But I love that, Cory. And one of the things I talk about, it's you got to be a lifelong learner and be comfortable that there's no there's no end in sight. That is so important. But the one of the truths is they have uncommonly good judgment. Well, what does that mean? Right? Again, as I write in the book, and in my opinion, there's no formula, although I'm sure people smarter than me have figured out some sort of formula for that. Here's what I found. They make the information they gather as unbiased as possible, and they become comfortable with ambiguity. To your point, there's no such thing as we've got all the data. There's no such thing as we've got all the right data. There's no such thing as we've got all the answers. We've got to make decisions and use our judgment to move in a direction without being comfortable and having a sure proof, risk-free answer.
Especially in product management, because we may not know if we were right for a year, 2 years, or more.
Exactly. Yeah. And where we could be right and something else could have been more right.
Yeah.
Or right. I mean, I think there's a line in the book that's like, we very rarely have this, option of, should we do this thing that every client that we have is clamoring for and every piece of data points us to, or should we do this thing that everybody says is ridiculously stupid? Those are our
It's
options.
never black and white.
What do we do? It's never like that, right?
Actually, Roger Martin, am I getting that right? Said, if the opposite of your strategy is stupid on its face, you don't have a strategy. And it's sort of like,
That's true, yeah.
Remind me of that. Cory, what you made me think about is me. Boy, that sounded really self-centric, didn't it? My career. No, my career. My career, I made a success of going into places where people thought they knew everything and they plateaued. Mm-hmm. And so just what you said, the fact that you never know all you need, was almost my immutable truth of my success. And boy, I only normally make the poll about myself, but I'm making this about myself right here. But it really resonated. And, I had not looked at Mironov's 4 laws, and boy, are they good. Mm-hmm. And Marty's risks, as the business side of me, Rich's 4 laws really, it really resonated. I really, really liked it.
If I may, on your plateau comment, right? If you're not curious, you don't realize that there's still more to learn, right?
They go together, don't they?
Absolutely.
It's interesting. Paul Hatala, who's a longtime community member, he said a great PM is a behavioral economist. They're students of decision-making process, both internal and external. And I thought that was a great, again, maybe it's a different category of, that's more of a characteristic of that. Cory, you have a comment.
So there's something I want to tie into Steve's comment, which is there's points at which I thought I know a lot about a topic, a market, a product, a user, a story, or whatever. And I've stood back, I've looked at it, I go, that looks pretty good. But what I ask myself is, what am I still confused by? What am I still unsure of? Or what am I less sure of than others? And that's the area I go back to dig in, because I love that curiosity, growth mindset, all that talk. That's where I find something to go deeper into, to get more knowledge on, to get better at, which is ultimately what I'm interested in, is making better products, furthering my knowledge and that type of thing.
It's interesting because, and I'm foreshadowing what I think your poll vote was, but we talk, one of the 5 immutable truths is prioritizing your time. And I think that's the key. One of my problems with my curiosity is I sometimes don't prioritize my time on the right things. I see something that really piques my interest, and it may not be relevant at all, but I do that rabbit trail and I follow it, and it may help me win a game of trivia in a couple years, but it may not have helped me be more successful. And I think that you just made me think about this, how there's times we need to be curious to figure things out to solve that problem, but there's time that we need to prioritize where do we go deep in those types of things. Steve, you've been awful quiet. I'd love to get your take on the truths. We know JJ's, and I've got a couple comments here. I want to see how close you get to mine. See how simpatico we are.
Oh, I'm probably not at all.
That's why you work so well together.
Yeah.
Based on today's discussion, I'm so reminded of the number of conversations I've had with people who say, we'd really like you to customize your training to our business. And I'm like, I've tried that in a way. I'm talking to a medical device firm, and I make up some medical device that is on its face just implausible and stupid, like a robotic earwax remover, and
actually, I just saw one of those on. I'm just kidding.
But anyway, to Cory's earlier point, I'm an expert in product management. You're an expert in the industry you're in, but your problem, Mr. Buyer, is you don't know product management. You don't have a systematic approach to doing things, which is kind of what we're talking about here is, finding opportunities through curiosity and observation and interview, but prioritizing everything and saying, this is the best opportunity for this company right now. And as we teach these things, we give people an opportunity to say, okay, how does this thing apply to our business? As opposed to me telling you how it applies to your business, because I don't understand your business as well as you do.
Yeah. Okay, I like that. And Cory, your comment in the chat really made me think we hope they are experts in the market, but this gets back to the answer you had before, that sometimes they stop learning and they're no longer experts in the market. So what I put in,
to go with that point though, I'm not sure many people I encounter in a product management or a leadership role are in fact expert in their market. They're experts in their domain. They're experts in, how
robotic earwax removal, but not.
Yeah. They're experts in their technology. Maybe they're experts in their domain and they have no idea who the customer is. And when we have these conversations about, say, personas, I fall back on my experience, which is in my experience, everybody assumes that they are the customer or their parents are. And both of those is wrong in most cases. Both of those are wrong in those cases.
It brings up a really interesting thought that that really this whole conversation is kind of centered around. One of the things that happens in organizations and with the people in those organizations, especially when they're in an industry or a domain for a long time, they lose that beginner's mind. They lose that curiosity, right? And so think about any time when a new person has come into your team, it always brings energy. They always ask questions that make people think about things differently. And so anytime that we, even though we're experts and have been doing it for a long time, can force ourselves to look at things from a beginner's perspective, use that beginner's mind, be curious, ask those questions, we're always as a team going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do that enough.
Completely. Cory says, or they get pickled. It's the place for me where I came in with a beginner's mind, trying to figure out why this thing wasn't working, why it plateaued. And when it didn't energize the people it should energize in product management, I went and did it myself. And I was a marketing role. And that's actually how I got into product management, was the product managers thought they knew everything. Yeah. And I was trying to market stuff. So I had to go talk to customers. And that's where it came from.
Funny how that works.
It is funny how that works. So the answer I put in, and Steve, you know me, I had to get Drucker into the conversation.
You're the Drucker
There you
fella.
go. JJ, we're getting you talked about with Marty Kagan and Rich Mironov, and now Peter Drucker. I mean,
I'm just retiring now. This is it. I can do no better than this conversation.
So what I said was the great product managers work from a market focus, understanding or empathizing with customers to understand their problems to solve, the value they see from solving them, and their motivations and preferences. And maybe that would go to the, as we talk about the customer intelligence as you're doing that. And again, it's cause effect type stuff. And as Drucker would say, they know and understand the customer so well. And I think that customer intelligence is key. The other one is they are leaders in the organization, enabling functions across the organization with context and collaboration. And to me, that probably goes in the communication one, but it's such a critical role to be working across. I'd love, in your 5, JJ, where do you find that leadership in cross-functional?
Yeah, a mix of relationship and communication.
Yeah.
So, and you're right on customer intelligence, and we talk about customer intelligence as kind of a scale, if you will. Everybody knows customer characteristics and, some level of situations, but it's the great product managers and great product teams that move up to motivation and drivers and then find those unmet pain points, right? To our point. And then, for leadership, it's, we talk about relationships, and again, great full books and classes and all kinds of stuff on building relationships. But in my experience, it's about instilling confidence, right? And instilling confidence comes from some of the other truths, but it also comes from that kind of influence and leadership, right? And then communication. You can't lead anyone anywhere without being able to communicate to what each audience needs, right? That's the other thing about leaders, is that they think about the best leaders in the world. Think about the best politicians, whatever you want to think of them. They really tailor their communications towards an audience, and they pull them in and they make them feel like they're talking directly to them.
No, I think it's great. I'm looking at the 5 right now in front of me, and I'm like, boy, I could probably string, and we do this often with our polls, string the answers together to be the answer. And in that leadership cross-functional, the way you do it is you have the exceptional high customer intelligence, both of your internal customers, so you understand them and their needs, but the external customer and their needs. You're an expert at building relationships with them because you have that intelligence you can share with them and you can make them successful. You can communicate stuff. I think it's almost all of the above is for that leadership thing, because then it's your judgment to know which things to go to them with and what to trust them with. And then I'm going to back prioritization out about prioritizing your time and make it maybe the macro the company's time. And if you can bring these off, Cory, did I do a good job with that? You normally are the one who helped me with that.
You're making a noble effort to stitch everything together.
Well, I mean, you actually have, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. The truth is, and at the end of the book, I talk about bringing them all together. Well, they all are together. Like, people have asked me, what's the most important one? And I get it. There are some ones that I would suggest for a new product manager or moving levels or whatever. But the truth is, they are a foundation. They're an intermingled foundation that, you know your customers better. You can communicate the why, which builds confidence, which builds relationships, which helps you prioritize, which makes you make better judgment and decisions, right? They literally are all intertwined. That's the thing about product management. We silo ourselves sometimes, but our thinking isn't siloed. I learned something about this over there yesterday, and guess what? A month later, it comes back to be important.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the premise, though, is if you want to be a great product manager, you have to have all of these capabilities.
Absolutely.
Or if you're, looking from the outside saying, who are some of the great product managers in the world? I mean, of course, Steve Johnson comes to mind straight away, but it's not like one capability or another. It's the great ones have these 5. And I'm going to put you on the spot here just for a second. Would you consider Steve Jobs a great product manager? I mean, he was a great psychopath, I suppose, but
no, I really wouldn't. And here's why. He's a visionary. He's a great CEO. He's a great entrepreneur. And some of the qualities may have to pepper in across and cross-pollinate. But no, I think if he truly had to be a product manager in a company, an Apple or whatever, and he wasn't the founder of it, no, he would fail miserably. He would bull rush his way into a successful product or two and maybe skate on that for a while, but most people would hate him, just because of
most people did hate him.
I know, right? He certainly wouldn't have the relationships that you would.
That was the first one, right? I looked at, but he has some of them. He has that may be the one that he doesn't have of the 4, right? If we're talking about the Immutable, I actually completely agree with you. I think that if he was a product manager and not the CEO, founder, owner of the company and one of the richest men in the world, he would have burnt a ton of bridges and may have had a couple of successes and lived on that. But he had high customer intelligence. He understood them. Mm-hmm. He was a master communicator. I mean, at the utmost factor. Obviously, he had uncommonly good judgment, and it seems like he was fanatical about prioritizing his time. He couldn't, but to that point, if he's not the CEO leader, he wouldn't get away with the way he did.
Exactly. And it's actually a really good example of why the 5 have to work together. Now, let me state for the record, if I had Steve Jobs on my team, he probably wouldn't have worked well in any organizational structure, whether that's right or wrong, right? I would hope, I can't say that I would definitely do this, but if I had Steve Jobs as a product manager working for me on my team, I probably would have had a hard time with him, right? And I hope I would have encouraged him to go out on his own, because there's a place for those brilliant people in this world. I'm just not 100% sure it's as a product manager.
You're the reason he created Apple?
Why?
You encouraged him to go off on his own.
Oh, yes. You know what? Not only me and Marty and Rich, Peter.
Steve Jobs now.
Steve Jobs was my mentee. And so, can we broadcast this recording everywhere?
We are going. It's going to be available. We can share that.
Okay, good.
Cory Tangent, does Jobs violate the don't be an asshole rule? Yes.
Yeah.
There's no question about that.
There's only a few. I mean, again, people who, I hate it personally that we let them get away with it. But hey, people who can change the world. And I don't mean that in a flippant way, but people who can do the things that he did, they get away with shit that they get away with stuff that they shouldn't. Because,
we curse on here. You're fine.
Oh, good. Okay. Shit. Good.
And I'm thinking though, that's not just CEO innovators. I've seen product leaders and product managers who, because they delivered, people gave them stuff. Sales people, I don't know if I've ever seen an accountant who was, but I think that is everywhere in our culture. It's like if somebody has a track record of success, we give them the benefit of the doubt, even if they're a jerk.
Yeah. One thing I want to bring up here, just and then I'll let you move on to your other questions or thoughts. But in the beginning of the book, I talk about, and I actually struggled with this a little bit, was I'm writing this whole book about how to be great. But the first question that should come to your mind is, how do you define great?
Yeah.
Right. How do you measure that? Because we're all about measuring it. And what's this? And what do you know? And I couldn't, come up with one. And so I write these things that the way we currently are measured, our product revenue, our usage, that kind of thing. And that's okay. There's some truth to that, but there's a lot that goes into that. That's not just us. So long story short, I kind of think of great product managers as having these set of markers, if you will, that, they have those relationships. People come to them for their advice on various things. They, never seem to be flailing about. Of course, we all get overwhelmed from time to time, but they seem to have that North Star vision for themselves. They aren't, those, slave drivers, excuse me, I should find a term. There's those asshole, like overworkers and overworked and overwhelmed. You could just see great product managers navigating the world around them easier than some others. And it's because of this foundation that they have.
I love that holistic view.
Yeah.
All right.
And I would love to say, here it is, take this test and I can tell you if you're great. I don't think that's how we work,
No, it's not. All right, let's get to the poll. Actually, I hit the wrong button. The poll's not there. Let's get to the poll, actually. On Wednesday, I went off. No, I got some complaints because normally we have it depends, and there are 5 truths, and the platform lets me put 5 potential answers. So we went with ask people of the 5 truths of great product managers, which is your strongest? And so exceptionally high customer intelligence, expert at building relationships, master communicator, uncommonly good judgment, fanatical about prioritizing your time. Dom, how did you vote?
I took expert at building relationships,
which is
in
second place at 31%.
Removing silos in the organization.
Okay, I love that. Steve, had you voted?
I seem to remember voting, but I can't tell what my answer would have been. So I'm going to go with, I probably said high customer intelligence because I always like putting my name next to the word intelligence.
That exactly makes sense how you would vote.
That is what you voted, Steve.
That is.
Okay.
I remember that now.
And I would say, just to ruin your poll a little bit, I'm probably good at all of those except building relationships. I tend to build down more than across and up. And with the people up, I tend to have a feeling of, why don't you just shut the hell up and let me do my job, which is not really relationship building.
Is there a trust issue?
Yeah. There's an experience issue. Too much time, it's been that case. Cory always, JJ, puts a comment in, and normally I have to guess, and I can see now that they put their little avatars, I know what it was, but I saw his comment first. Time isn't the main thing; it's the only thing. Miles Davis. It's not that we have little time, but that we waste a good deal of it. Seneca. There's never enough time to do all the nothing you want. Calvin and Hobbes. So obviously fanatical about prioritizing your time, Cory.
I mean, jazz musicians, stoic philosophers, and cartoon characters. What more? I mean, that covers all the bases, doesn't it?
Well, I would add Rolling Stones to that. You can't always get what you want.
Well, there's also the Rush song, "Time Stands Still." Anyway,
but then Styx wouldn't agree, because Styx says I have too much time on my hands. Never mind. I digress.
I've gone really deep on the subject of time. Anybody who chooses voluntarily to read The Order of Time by Carlo Rovelli has problems. I have problems. And it's something that I talk with teams about. It's something I talk with my teens about, is everybody gets 168 hours a week. You're given freely. And every week, even if you screw up this 168 hours this week, you get another one next week. Unless you're off this planet, which there's very few people off this planet, that is a relevant factor. And really, it's about what you do with that time. One of the phrases that I've forbid people to say is, I don't have time. You do have time. You have the same amount of time that anybody else does. What you decide to do with that time is what you're choosing to focus on, prioritize, or what you really show you care about. Because if you cared about X, you would make room and make time for it. And all these other ones, while I like them, they require time. They require investment in time, effort, energy. And unless you're setting that aside, you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
And thank you for our Franklin Planner lesson of the day. So I voted for uncommonly good judgment. And for a while, I was the only one there. And maybe I'm egotistical and I'm making it about myself, which we said I'd normally do in the poll. But I feel like in my career, that judgment came from exceptionally high customer intelligence and maybe some from prioritization. But I feel like the strongest one I had was uncommonly good judgment. JJ, did you answer the poll, or do you have a feel for yourself which one you think you're strongest at?
You know, what's interesting is I did answer it. And as I was thinking about it, I was like, oh God, how do I answer this? Number one, there was a bit of I can do all of them, and then a bit of, God, I suck at all of these. How can I write a book about this? Imposter syndrome came up big time. But I answered it prioritization.
Okay.
Because I'm with Cory on that. I think that one of the things I've learned over my career is that you do what you want to do, right? You do what you prioritize. Yep. And I still to this day put off things and don't do them till the very last minute because I prioritize something else. But I'm trying to be very intentional, right? And so, we talk about in the book about, and I love how you talked about that. It's not just, using some newfangled prioritization matrix to talk about, to figure out what work to do. It's about starting with ourselves and what's important to us. And then, bucketing that, like I want to spend 45% of my time with my family. Okay. That takes out of your 168 hours. Then you got to work around that. And so that's, start and then guys the work.
It's interesting because you talk about prioritizing time, and I'm working with a client, helping them do some market due diligence for private equity acquisition. And I've done multiple interviews with customers, and it's consistency. It's like our people don't want to have to work at nights on weekends. This is something to help fill the gap. And it's like, for them, the customer intelligence was understanding that there's this gap to be filled, that people want to be filled, but while filling it, they want to have peace of mind. And it's like, if we can, maybe this is who's the 4-hour work week guy?
Tim Ferriss.
Tim Ferriss, right? If we can understand these trade-offs and what we can outsource, you know, I know that the 4-hour work week got me thinking two things. One, I'm glad I've taken my family on all these trips we've had while we're young enough to appreciate and enjoy them, compared to my parents who saved all their money to, well, they're now in their 80s and they're worrying about how do I walk around an old city. And the other is getting me in that mindset that, yes, I could do it, but is there somebody who could do it for me at a better price? And that comes into time. And now I'm thinking I need to do a little better job of the time stuff.
So here's another immutable fact about time, especially when it comes to budgeting time. If you don't budget your time, somebody else will. And I do not want to be, you can look at your schedule, you can look at your meetings, you can color code it. How many did I schedule? How many are important? How many did other people schedule? How many are weekly things that drain the life out of me? Because you're allowing that to suck your time down a black hole that you will never get back.
All of a sudden, this is becoming the one immutable truth of time. Is that what you're trying to do, Cory?
It's the only thing, as Miles Davis said.
And it's perishable, right? Of all the other things that are there, I guess customer intelligence is perishable.
Everything else you can get back somehow.
It's more durable. That's true. You can get customer intelligence back by going back to the market. So we may only have time for one before the lightning round. We only have time for one before the lightning round. The question I want to ask is, which of the 5 truths is the hardest to master and which is the easiest? And so, again, customer intelligence, building relationships, master communicator, good judgment, prioritize time. I'll give you guys time to think about it. Hardest to master for me is time. You know, whether it's an executive functioning thing, whether it's my, ADD, I don't know what it is. I have never been good at managing my time. And I think that this is probably, you could go into your Myers-Briggs or whatever and start figuring out for different people, different things are hard. But for me, I've always been good at customer intelligence. I know how to go and engage and learn. I've been a great person at building relationships. I may not be a master communicator, but I'm a much better communicator than I used to be. And as I said, I think I've got really good judgment. Prioritizing time is the hardest, I think. That's sort of, and again, this is opening it up to everybody, but I think that's the hardest. The easiest for me is the customer intelligence, because it's you just need to learn how to ask questions and learn and listen. The other ones, I think building relationships, master communicator, and good judgment build on some of that stuff. But that's sort of my take. Cory, you're raising your hand in the actual physical format, not on the Zoom. That's
my
first.
mouse is all the way over there. I'm lazy. So easiest for me is prioritizing time. That's incredibly easy because I think of it like a budget, and I budget everything. The hardest for me, I wanted to say build relationships, but relationships can be one-on-one or one-to-many. And that's where that master communicator comes in. It's very hard, even for the best people, to communicate effectively with a large number of people. So that's what I would pick as the hardest.
And maybe what we're seeing, and it'll be interesting what Steve says, that maybe we are yin yang and that type of stuff. For me, the communication thing, I'm actually, when I do a large crowd, I almost like, you hear people talk about, I don't even remember what I said or did. I'm on stage and I have my notes and I say it. I'm like, I never would repeat the same thing. But everybody's like, oh my God, that was great. And, some of it's maybe innate. I don't know.
So are you defining a master communicator as a person who delivers a good message, or as someone who delivers a message that people understand once they receive it?
Oh my God. You're making me think about.
Because I'm thinking the latter, not the former.
I was thinking
me too.
I may not do a good job of reaching everybody that needs to hear that or wants to hear that.
Yeah. So in the book, again, one of the things I try to do is simplify these down to a couple of things, right? Not the only things, but a couple of things. And for communication, it comes down to connection and clarity. Connecting meaning the clarity meaning they got it, right? It was concise. It was you repeated if needed. They got it. And connection is they got how it mattered to them.
Yeah.
It sinks in.
Right?
Yeah. I get it. Dom, how about you?
Yeah, most difficult part is the master communicator. I mean, to Cory's point, I mean that is a tough part. And for me, I mean, building relationships is the easy part. I just love people, and I mean, I can build relationship with almost anybody. I could sell ice cream to an Eskimo. So
that's a really good
wait, but we could go down a whole path on ice to Eskimos, and I'm deciding not to go down that path. But it's interesting because Cory just pointed out nobody voted for master communicator as their strongest. And it didn't surprise me in this, and I don't even know if I went through the poll. The number one was customer intelligence, which doesn't surprise me because a lot of these people are people who have had Steve as a teacher, who have taken, who have been the religion of market problems is really something that we preach, and I think that there's a lot of people who do go with that. Steve, I want you to answer this question. Which do you think is the hardest, and which is the easiest?
Well, it certainly, all of these have a lot to do with where you came from.
Yeah.
But actually, I think the easiest for me to master was communication, particularly in broad groups. The one I find hardest to master is meaningful relationships with many people. I mean, I'm very good in a room of 1,000, or I'm very good in a room of 3. But when I'm dealing with 8 or 10 or 12 people, that's where I struggle with relationships. It's too many relationships for my head.
Not to dig into the psychology of our business partnership, but it just hit me. You have a lot of similarities to my wife in that, where those people
probably a good thing because she seems pretty bright.
Yeah, well, but it goes to that relationship thing. She has a hard time building relationships with people, but once she does, Steve, the people you've built relationships with, oh my God, they love you and they're loyal. We did your silver jubilee last year, and the notes that people were writing. Once people get to know you and you let them in, oh my God, you're incredible with relationships. But you're hard. You don't let people in easily, and you don't open up, and you don't build them easily. And that's exactly Michelle. And so, wow, that's a big.
So 2 great partnerships in Grant's life.
Yep.
It is. We joke that I've probably talked to you more than I talk to her sometimes. JJ, what do you think about? I mean, I guess there's the specific for you, which is hardest and which is easiest. And do you think in general that what you've seen in talking to people about these, there is?
Yeah. So I'll answer for me first, and then to the group, or to the kind of statistics, if you will. And it's all qualitative. Haven't done a survey. I think my easiest truth is, probably relationship building, which is a little, it's odd because I'm an introvert by nature, but I think it's easy for me to build rapport. Doesn't mean I don't have to work on it, but I think and probably judgment or communication. I think communication is just one of those things where we get better at it. We're okay at it at times, and then we continuously have to work on it. Right. I figure, just like, I reflect on myself and realize that I'm talking too much, right? I'm not concise enough. The message isn't clear. So I think communication is probably the hardest for me. Now, one of the things that I hear about the group, right, like in general, the hardest one, and I'll preface this with, it's interesting because everybody has their own hardest and easiest, right? Yeah. And that's the point, is for each individual to say, okay, here are the truths that I need. Let me put a plan together. I'm going to work on communication because that's my hardest one, or the one I'm not as good in. I'm okay with prioritization, so I'm going to make that number 5, right? So each person has to do that. But generally speaking, I think decision making and judgment is the most intimidating one. People don't understand it. People think they have to have 20 years of experience. People think they have to always pick the right answer. That's not what good judgment means, right? It doesn't always mean getting the right answer. Sometimes there is no right answer. So So I think judgment is the hardest one for people to get their heads around and to think they're good at, right? And I think probably customer intelligence is the easiest.
Yeah.
Now again, there's that level, right? So that we understand our customers, we understand what's going on with them, but most don't pass that threshold of, their motivations and their pain points, right? So there's the easiest, but do you actually get to the pinnacle of customer intelligence?
I love that. And Steve's got his hand up, but Dom was making some faces, so I also wanted to get his before we go to the lightning round.
Go ahead, Steve. JJ, quick question about good judgment. Can this be biased by company culture that may be risk averse?
Yes, absolutely. And so one of the things about good judgment is being comfortable with ambiguity and making decisions without all the data and making decisions without knowing that it's a prediction. Some companies don't allow for that. Some companies are like, you better get this down to, you better be within a 5% threshold of error or we're not approving it. And that culture breeds an uncomfortableness with ambiguity. And if you're in that culture, you got to work in that culture, right?
Yeah. Or decide to leave.
Or decide to leave. Exactly. That's exactly right. And Dom, it's such a good point that some companies, and don't get me wrong, there are parts of the process and there are decisions that need to be de-risked, right? Like if you're about to spend, $20 million on, tools and dies and that sort of thing to manufacture something. Yeah, let's get that right.
Yeah.
Right. But if you're, deciding on something that is a little bit more ambivalent, then hey, then let's, be okay with making some predictions. But it's a good point, Dom. You got to work in the world you're in, or move to one you're more comfortable with.
Yep, I love it. Steve, you were going to say before we go to lightning round.
I just wanted to reiterate before we went to the lightning round that these 5 immutable truths should be at the forefront of people who manage product managers, that it should be part of professional development.
Yeah.
I remember one of my employees years ago came to me and said, here are some things that I want to achieve. And then asked me, what are some of the things you think I should achieve? And I kind of went blank. I'm like, oh, I liked your list. Let's call it a day. That's fine. But I think this is a really handy checklist. Do you have competitor intelligence? Customer intelligence. Do you have these immutable truths? If so, if not, let's work on those as part of your grooming over the next period of time.
No,
so I think circling back around to how we might use this book in a managerial capacity, seems a very good place to begin.
That's awesome. No. I've also done, and I know we're lightning rounding, so one thing, I put this Google Doc together and I'll send it around. Anybody who's listening who wants it, I'll send it to you. But I'd love your feedback because it's basically how to interview for these truths, right? So if you're interviewing for new product managers, here are some questions you can ask. May not be as apparent, but it will help you glean out like, okay, do they have this? Do they have that? You don't have to have all of these to get hired as a product manager, but you do have to build them over time. So, and I would love your feedback on what other kind of questions can help glean those out.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate that. So we're the lightning round, and actually good news is the lightning round is really a sort of a poll. I'm going to do it one by one. If you could pick just one truth to give to a new product manager, which would it be? Cory, I have to go to you first because I think I know your answer.
What do you think my answer is?
Prioritizing your time.
Nope.
What? What would you give to a new product manager?
Judgment.
Ooh. Because it's the hardest to get?
Because every decision that you make is a judgment, a choice. And whether you're choosing, you need to be intelligent enough to choose the right things at the right time.
Okay.
To be successful. So if they want to learn something, learn judgment and decision making so that you can make good choices about all the rest of the stuff.
I'm the one who turned the lightning round into a thunder round this time. Dom, which would you choose?
So the key here in the question is new. And for me, it's definitely prioritizing his time.
Okay. All right. We got 2 different votes. Steve.
I'm going to say building relationships, particularly for a new product manager. influencing other people to work together as a team is probably the thing that I would do most as a new product manager, and that I found rather difficult.
I love it. JJ.
Communication. And it's not just because we needed that one on the list, Cory. I think that if you have, and again, you still have to build it up, right, and keep building it. But I've seen so many really brilliant people not be as successful because they couldn't communicate an idea quite right, or to the right audience, to the right level, et cetera. So if you've got communication, man, it just makes everything so much easier. So that's what I would say.
And now the pressure's on me, Cory, because either I make it one for each or I choose a master one. Yeah. But I actually would say it's the customer intelligence, because every time I came in as a new product manager, what set me apart was me going and getting that customer intelligence. Yep. So was not planned, although the pressure got onto JJ and me once we saw the first 3 votes.
It did. It was hard.
This is now saying there are 5 immutable truths, because we need all of them. Each of us, 5 seasoned, experienced product leaders, each chose one of the different ones. And I think that says a lot about the book. And again, Immutable, 5 Truths of Great Product Managers. And my research assistant, Steve, told me that it's all 5-star reviews on Amazon. So, wow, what about that? We each have it. I'm reading it as we well, not as we speak, but if you know what I mean, facetious, whatever. But please go read it. JJ, such a great time. We do this conversation basically every week, maybe not in the summers or on holidays or when I'm moving. But what we do is on Monday, the question goes in the community. On Wednesday, we have the poll. And on Fridays, we have these amazing conversations. And this conversation was amazing. It went so many ways for me, helping me both in my analyzing my relationship with Steve and our partnership, but also looking at different things when it comes to product management. And I say it every week. I learned something new. I changed my opinions, and that's why we do this call all the time. JJ, thank you for participating and partnering us this week for this.
So much fun.
Cory, Dom, my partner Steve, thank you so much. We'll see you guys next week in the community. Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend.